I mean, the upside of being homeless and owning a canoe is, you have a canoe. I feel like I should just be backed up against my wall, holding my drink, not sure what to do.
Dude, I feel like I'm supposed to get my butt up off that seat, turn up the resistance to 7, and push it hard.
You come here
push it
a
hard.
lot. I like Rick and Morty.
Happy Monday, everybody. We're getting started with weird things in just a minute.
Andrew's every social interaction in the last 3 years. Yeah.
So what's your schedule, Mr. Young?
It's actually funny. I actually wrote out a week's worth of schedules for everybody that I'm going to send out today or tomorrow on the flight. But just basically like a production rundown where with everybody's numbers and the relevant addresses and timing schedules for everything. But I'm in Austin. I land tomorrow at 1.
Nice.
At that point, I guess I got a car, so I'll hook up with you wherever you are at that point, and then get settled in at the compound, and then I don't really have anything else until Night Attack that night. And then the next day, if you're still game, Brian, it's an early rise to drive to Dallas to do Eaton's show on Wednesday.
Yeah, I'd have to now that we're close enough to it. I'll have to check with Bonnie on if Penny can, if she'll take Penny in. But if that's the case, I can also move my workout because I feel like that opportunity for you and me to be in the room
fairly rare. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that's important enough to shuffle some stuff around.
But yeah, then Thursday we have Daily Tech News Show and stuff. Friday there's now there's going to be a little mini PX3 plus Mike TV and Trey Warren thing that is happening. And then Saturday, of course, is the show. Sunday's the VIP thing, and then we're back in California Sunday night.
Cool. Yeah.
R.I.P. Luke Perry.
Yeah,
Luke
man.
Perry and the Prodigy guy.
And the Prodigy guy.
The 90s are under attack.
Wait,
Somebody called
the
Posse.
dude with the reverse mohawk?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Suicide, please. Or need of help. God for help.
so yeah, Luke Perry was just a massive stroke, but I guess Prodigy was
Yeah, he according to reports, most likely took his own life. Sad day.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, we lost one of the founders of Square, like yesterday, the day before.
Oh, Jesus, really?
Yeah. So that would be 3s. Yeah.
it's funny
Well,
how like
and-
that whole like we search for 3s, and we all know it's an artifact of if you look for a pattern you can find it. But I wonder if what we're really seeking is closure. To like what we want is to believe this wave is over, and if we just peek around, like okay, well now I'm in a bad state. I'm thinking of people dying and my own mortality. Let me investigate just far enough to find 1, 2, and sure, this third one. Now I could just close that loop off and go back to believing I'll live forever.
Yeah, I think it's part of that, and also part of like just having a weird way to guess random noise, like that. It's like They always have it in 3. I told you. They always like it's like some weird like. Tell you what, go watch that red light. It's always on for 17 seconds. Well, what I tell you, it was definitely 17 seconds that it was on. It's just a weird thing we have about being right in a way that matters.
And I guess that makes sense. Our brains are just prediction engines that are constantly running at all times.
Oh yeah. Anything you need, anything that I think is confusing about the world, you could explain by our pattern recognizing brains.
Pattern seeking, yeah. Yep.
Anyway, happy Monday,
So-
everybody.
Good energy.
This is gonna be a great episode, Andrew. You had
You
a
got
hell
lots
of
to
a- hell of a
report,
week.
yeah.
Yes.
Also, this is the show. It's been going for 20 minutes now.
So I'm good to go whenever you guys
Oh, okay.
are. The energy and
Now I know why you guys are podcasting giants and I'm not. Tell us about your trip, Andrew. It was fun.
I liked it.
It was good.
I liked the part where the rocket went up.
That's cool.
you guys good to go?
Yeah. Hey.
Yeah.
Okay, I was asking again. All right, then take it away, Andrew, in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to Weird Things, as we like to say, that show that features the star, co-host, and creator of the greatest independent television show ever, Brian Brushwood.
No, well, I mean, now let's be clear. It's just the opinion of a tiny journal that I'm sure nobody has heard of called Forbes Magazine. With the headline, "It's time to talk about the modern rogue, television's best independent series going."
How can somebody write something so controversial yet so brave? Finally, putting a name to what we've all known, the burgeoning success of the modern rogue. Everybody who is listening to this needs to find that article and retweet it or share it with friends, because as the title beseeches us, the time is now to start talking about the modern rogue.
Yeah,
So
look,
do your part.
everybody's been trying to put it off, to try to sweep it under the rug. It's time to speak truth to power, and it's time to talk about how the modern rogue is the best independent series going.
Enough.
So-
I'm
so-
tired of this cryptic talking around the issue. No, we want full modern rogue right now.
That's Justin Robert Young you're hearing. I'm Andrew Main, and we're also joined by Bryce Castillo.
Hi,
who
everybody.
The other three of us are not the stars of the greatest
Nope.
independent show.
Nope, no relation.
No. I wonder if he's going to talk about podcasts, though. The reporter, the journalist. Maybe we should do a mail-in campaign. Greatest science podcast.
It's time to talk about weird things. The best podcast currently going.
Yeah. Somebody points in the comment. Usually when someone writes, "It's time to talk about blank," it's never good. Not this one. Finally good.
I actually do like the what's funny is I did read the headline, first thing in the morning, and I think I had a flash of like, it's time to talk about the modern rogue, and I thought,
Oh, jeez. There's that weird moment of like, some researchers say, "Oh, your life doesn't flash before your eyes," and I've seen some experiments. I'm like, I don't know if that would really show. But there have been moments where you read and then your brain goes off in like 9 different parallel universes of possibility, and you're like, and you watch each one of them collapse till you get to the reality. But
yeah.
I think it's a real thing. It's time to talk about Brian. Oh no, they found out. What did they find out? I'm good.
and it really is wild because I guess at a deep animalistic level, exile equaled death in tribal societies, and so that's why we're so irrationally dialed in on it.
Yeah. Hey, we got some topics to discuss, from the rational to the irrational, which is irrational and rational things will be the new title of it. But first, listen, I do not have the best independent series on television, but I know someone who does, and I also am about to be aerated here, by the way, so so I get swatted in the middle of the show. Gentlemen, I don't want to brag, but guess what I did this weekend?
What? Wait a minute.
This weekend, Andrew.
I saw a rocket launch.
Yeah.
Oh, my good Lord. Of course, you were selected to be one of the lucky few to have a great access before and during the launch this weekend out in Florida. This was the first the first crewed a vehicle that could have crew in it that's gone up from America in a very long time, and it is a SpaceX vessel, which is really rad.
So yeah, I got selected to be part of. There's a program called NASA Social, which is for people who are in social media, to participate in NASA events. And I highly recommend, if you're involved in social media, check it out. The goal is to not get, let's say, just space journalists and stuff, but people who are talking to all sorts of audiences. They want to spread out and reach out across a large group of people. I would implore Brian and Justin to consider applying for these things, and other podcasters, people out there. And what it does is you go out there on your own dime, and you're like media, but you're social media, and you show up. And we showed up at NASA on Thursday morning, and you go into, over the Space Center, and you go into an auditorium, and you have some different speakers. And we had an amazing group of speakers that came in there. People head of different programs, person in charge of ISS operations, person in charge of the crewed commercial crew missions. Just an amazing group of people spoke to us on that first day. And then the second day, they take us on the buses around the Kennedy Space Center. And then we had pop-in speakers. Kjell Lindstrom, who's a really super cool guy, who's actually a friend of mine, who's an astronaut, who's an alternate, came out and talked to us. He was awesome. We had a surprise visitor, was Jim Bridenstine, head of NASA, came out and talked to us with Bob Cabana, who's head of the Kennedy Space Center, and gave us talks, let us ask questions and stuff, and we also went into labs, toured different labs, talked to different scientists there. It was a really great, example of what's going on behind the scenes. And it was a really, really a wonderful experience to see what's going on with NASA up close. And then we got to go over to the launch pad and see the SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket with the crew capsule on top of it. And we had somebody from SpaceX come talk, which was just a really great experience to be able to see, up close what's going on. And so what is going on? NASA has been working on a program to help bring astronauts back to the International Space Station, and they're trying to do this at a lower cost than what's been going on before. The last time the shuttle flew was 2011, and since then we've been putting astronauts on the Soyuz spacecraft, using buying seats from the Russians, which is a solution which has utility to it, but we don't want that to be a permanent solution. That's our only way to get astronauts to there. So NASA started a program where they went out to contractors and said, hey, who wants to try to bring astronauts to the station? Come with your proposals. And SpaceX and Boeing won. SpaceX won with their Crew Dragon, and Boeing won with their Starliner. And both of them have these things in progress. And this was the first test of SpaceX's crew capsule. And it took off Friday morning, 2:49 in the morning, or Saturday morning, 2:49, launched towards the International Space Station. And a day later, it docked. And connected up. Everything went flawlessly, so they still have to bring it back. There's more stuff to go involved. But if all works out well, they're going to do another test in a couple months. What they're going to do is they have to test the in-flight abort system, because what makes this capsule special is it's got these Super Draco engines on it. So at any point up until it reaches the end, any point during flight, the upper section, the capsule can eject and make it safely back down to Earth, which no space capsules ever had that capability. So they're going to test that part out, no people on board. And if that works out, maybe July, we'll see our first astronauts on board an American spacecraft since 2011.
That is huge. And what's like, we have been big fans sitting on the sidelines cheering for the audacious nature of what SpaceX was going for in terms of reusability. And we all watched and shrugged as there were almost landing of the first stage and all of the attempts to catch the fairing and all that stuff. The stakes feel real different now, knowing that we're at a place where we're going to put human bodies in there. And now, all of a sudden, it's like I feel myself, as somebody who cares deeply about this, getting quiet and looking intently.
It's it's interesting to just watch these things go from things we talk about to watching them happen. And what was funny was we're as we go to the launch, I got to watch it from the Causeway, which is just a fantastic place to watch it. You're about as far away from there as you are from the Mission Control Center, and so you see a very great view of everything. And on the way there, they have to read you the disclaimer, the warning disclaimer, the standard language, because you're in an impact zone. If anything goes haywire, like they want you to get on the buses and get you the hell out of there. And they're reading the copy and they talk about you understand that, that there's a risk with, launches, and landings. And I thought about that. I said, they had to add that. They had to add that landing part because that wasn't a thing that rockets did. And we saw they had out at sea, they had, I think, Of Course I Still Love You, which is a drone ship which catches the boosters. And we could see the booster do the light up and go land, at night. And that was just a thing to think about, is that's what's changed, is that we bring rockets back down now at Kennedy Space Center.
Which is that is such a remarkable achievement that I don't think that, at least for now, we should lose sight of, considering it was an impossibility for so long, and we're really in the literal infancy of it being the reality. Was there anything surprising in all of your conversations that you had out there, or either from SpaceX or NASA, about that that flight or future flights?
I mean, I'll talk a little about culture differences, but the thing. One, I was very excited. They, when the head of NASA there asked, wanted to know if we had any questions. Guess what nerd had already positioned himself right in the middle. As soon as I knew he was going to come talk, I stood right in front of the podium, and my arm just shot straight up in the air. And the big question a lot of people have who are fans of, SpaceX and Blue Origin and some of these other private space companies is, what's going to happen with the SLS, the Space Launch System. And that is NASA's design next generation rocket. It's a huge heavy lift booster that's designed to take Orion, take us back to the moon, and go beyond. And the challenge with that rocket, like rockets are hard as it goes, these programs take forever, they can end up costing more money, and the SLS system is going to be $1 billion plus per launch. And so the funding for it is continuing to develop it because NASA needs to have a system to do this. But the question people are asking now is like, well, if you've got SpaceX building, they've got the Falcon Heavy now and they're building Starship, and you got Blue Origin building the New Glenn and the new Armstrong rockets, you've got these private companies that are going to do it so much cheaper. Why are we still doing the SLS? And the answer to that is basically, we don't know that they're going to have those yet. There's no guarantee that the SLS has technology we know is there. That being said, my question was to Brian Stein, I was like, hey, what are your plans if these commercial partners make available super heavy lift? What happens then? And he gave a very on-point answer saying, like, listen, we hope that happens. We want to have multiple ways to space, and if they can provide these things, then we're going to be very interested in them. Meaning effectively that, if they can make these things work, NASA's going to want to use these things.
Yeah, it is weird. It's so not guaranteed that they're going to ramp up at the speed that we hope that. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm a big fan of keeping government spending, svelte and appropriate, as a matter of national security, I don't know that I would stop the SLS, even though, on launch, so to speak, it will be ridiculous and antiquated. But I don't know that if I was in Congress, I would vote to defund it or say stop it.
If we have the ability to cancel it because we have better options, it seems like a prudent idea to keep it going until we know for sure that that it's not worth building.
And that kind of course, in keeping the problem is to make sure that the costs don't continue to go out of control, because that becomes another problem though, is that you can say, well, we have no other choice, we gotta, the sunk cost fallacy can be frustrating. But I agree with the mentality that's like, we can't, just because Bezos and Musk say, hey, we're going to do these things, we can't base a space policy on the mercurial nature of two individuals, who could go through financial shortfalls, and then we find out we have absolutely nothing. And that's NASA's point of view. But I'd say the contrary point of view, though, is like, man, that program keeps getting more and more expensive. And the cost that we thought it was going to cost has gone way out of proportion. And there's other costs related to it that aren't getting as much attention, like the launcher costs and some other stuff, which may be more expensive. But, the upside is that, like, for NASA's side is their budgets have been increased. President Trump added $1 billion to their budget, and in Congress, both sides, bipartisan, came together, added an additional $1.7 billion. So NASA's had its largest budget increase in, I think since like probably the Apollo era or something. It's been substantial. It's not that level, which was 20% of our GDP, and probably not a good idea, but it's been increased, which NASA wants to keep that going up. But I mean, it's been a very good thing for funding for NASA all across the board, which both parties have agreed to do that. But I think that, yeah, we could see, in a year or 2 or 2 years or so, if we see these other rockets operating, there might be a shift. But not everybody in NASA is going to be happy about that. I mean, everybody I met was super enthusiastic about SpaceX, what's going on there. But I'm leaving the airport, and TSA guy sees my SpaceX hat, and he goes, "Oh, SpaceX, did you go to the launch?" I'm like, "Yeah, I did. It was amazing." He goes, "I saw a guy here had some NASA gear on," and I said, "Oh, did you watch the SpaceX launch?" And he said, "No, I work for NASA." It's like,
I mean, look, I get it. You have a TurboGrafx 16, and you don't like the Sega Genesis, I guess. That's.
It's like, it's more like, like, do you like Mario Kart? No, I'm a Donkey Kong fan. It's like this was part of this was a NASA sponsored. This is part of a NASA program. There are NASA astronauts. You look at the astronauts who are going to fly on this craft. It says NASA on their logo. Everybody I met who was involved with this project was NASA. It's in a facility at NASA, and it was just that weird. It's like you're a public space agency. It was just that, like, again, I'm hearing this secondhand, but there is that mentality where, and part of it is it's because if you're working on SLS, if you're working on one of these other programs, you are threatened by this.
Yeah.
You are threatened by the idea that, 5 years ago when you signed on board, you were going to be the only game in town. And now you are worried because we're like, yay, put that, cancel that program or fire those people. And which is not what we want. We want them to be building other stuff. But, hey, let's put it all towards SpaceX. And when you watch people talk from NASA, like a lot of it is every time you do the tour, they have these kind of like science fair display boards explaining what they do, and you get these talks about my project, my program, or what I'm doing here, and this is why we need to be funded, So.
Which that does bring such an exciting era, and it's really one that we've kind of dreamed of on this show for a very long time, to move NASA more into the part where, of course, they're always going to be a publicly funded agency that is leading the way, but to get more into the, hey, look, here's what we need, here are the costs, not everything's gonna balloon in some ridiculous capacity because we're doing everything made to order. We'll be able to do off the rack stuff, and here's what we can accomplish, and you can cut down the time, obviously, by eliminating the R&D and the cost, and we can just get NASA back to what I think is the optimal state, which is doing cool stuff and leading the way. And it's less about the constant dog and pony show of, well, let's justify why NASA is good. Let's get back to a point where NASA is clearly justifying why it's an important agency.
Well, and it does a lot of different things. And I think there are a number of people within the agency doing things that are directly threatened by SpaceX and Blue Origin.
Yes.
And that's the thing, is if you went to NASA because you wanted to build and design rockets, and you find out that your rocket program is under threat because, some private enterprise is going to go in there and do it, that's a challenge. But we're that aside, we're in exciting space. We went to one of the buildings we go to is where they do, they have space station stuff that's going up the space station. There's a section there for Sierra Nevada. They have the Dream Chaser, which is the thing that looks kind of like the mini shuttle. It's going to be an unmanned vehicle that will go up to the International Space Station, carry cargo. They'll put cargo back on the thing, and then it'll come back down and land, I think in the Mojave Desert or whatever, which means it can have a much more gentle reentry. We're going to have that vehicle servicing the space station. We're going to have, of course, we have SpaceX doing that already. I think there's Orbital ATK doing that. And, we're getting, just a lot of exciting stuff. They just leased a pad over at the Cape Canaveral to the Kennedy Space Center to Firefly, which is a company we talked about before, which is building, inexpensive, disposable, but very small rockets to launch CubeSats, which will increase the availability to launch stuff. So that's kind of a cool thing. Is it's not just going to be, you have SpaceX there now. You're going to have Blue Origin's got a facility there, and I think they're going to have a launch pad there. And now Firefly has a launch pad. 3 launch pads controlled by private companies.
Which means
more
stuff is going up, and we are seeing more activity than we have before, which is just great. And it's also just on a personal note, I'm just glad that it's also making that there have been more reasons why friends of mine have wanted to go to the Space Coast or Cape Canaveral or that part of Florida, which is, if you ever head out there, it very much seems, at least when I was growing up, like it was this kind of like flash frozen boom city from a bygone era when it was very 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 exciting, and I'd be very pumped of that area of the country. I think just both as a fan of the state of Florida and as a history nerd, if there's a second act to Canaveral and Titusville and all those.
Oh, I'm driving through there, you're like, you see a lot of shuttered buildings and stuff, because part of the problem is after Apollo, there was a bit of decline, and then the space shuttle program came up, and there was that, and then when the shuttle program, it's like a military base closing.
Yeah,
it devastates everything, and you still see the effects of that. But if I was a developer, I'd be buying up, because I think that we're going to see huge demand for research centers and stuff there.
Because I think it's also just such a great location too, that if you're visiting Orlando or any of the theme parks out there, it's a quick hop, skip, and a jump to go see.
30-minute drive from the airport, less than 30-minute drive from the Orlando airport to there.
So there we go. That's our segment, sponsored by the State Tourism Board of Florida. But enough of you giving the state of Florida your money. How about you knock that right off and think about giving us your money? Patreon.com/weirdthings is where you can hear us talk about space. Andrew went out to Florida to give you this information. He went out and did it on his own dime. This is how you can support such initiative by heading on over to patreon.com/weirdthings right now. Hey, Brian, what kind of spiritual and material enrichment does one get from subscribing to patreon.com/weirdthings?
You do get the smug satisfaction of knowing that you're factually better than everyone you meet for the rest of the day. But more importantly, you get your very own RSS feed that includes our sister podcast, After Talk, where we spill the real dish. After Things. Yeah.
That's so many the secret level, Brian, that we only tell really good sponsors.
After Things. Beans on AT?
That's look, man, that's when we get to spill the real dish on how we are able to make it as independent creators, and it's a story that we love to tell you guys, and it's a lot of fun, and it's all thank you to the nearly 300 patrons who hit us up over at patreon.com/weirdthings.
Hot yeah, patreon.com/weirdthings.
Gonna make it a thing.
Time to play a game.
Yay!
All right. Moira Boxall was shocked to discover what was in her shoe after she took an airplane flight.
Gotta be a snake. Gotta be a snake.
The Scorpions love to be in shoes, though. And I mean like one of the members of the band Scorpion.
Well, Brian, how the hell does Scorpion get into an airplane? What did he have to check his stinger at TSA?
So, who you said the name of the person? Is it a famous person?
No.
Okay.
No.
It's got
yet. I mean, I don't want to,
It's either spiders or snakes. I'll say a black widow spider.
All right, here's your clue. So she opened up, I guess, her suitcase, looked inside her shoe, and I'm going to tell you where. She's a Scottish woman.
Okay.
All right. Anybody want to change their vote? Change it.
Yes, it was a.
Did she land in Scotland, or was she flying back to Scotland?
she landed in Scotland and she found it.
She landed in Scotland. So she was taking off from anywhere and landing in Scotland. I'm going to say that it was definitely a golf club. No, a snake. I'm going to say a snake.
I'm sticking with spider. Sticking with spider.
All right, I'm going to give you one more piece of information, and feel free to change your vote after this changes, Justin. That may just totally change your point of view.
All right.
She was in Australia.
Oh, all right. Things from Australia to Scotland. You know, you could get a koala bear. You could get Broden from Auntie Donna.
They all do fit in a shoe. That's a good point.
You could get a larger than socially acceptable use of the C word. There's a lot of things that are in Australia.
Uggs. Could and where would you stuff your Uggs in? But in your shoes, you would
put in another shoe.
Yeah.
You know what though, Andrew? I'm gonna stick with snake. I'm gonna say snake is the thing that she found in her shoe. A snake, an Australian snake, got in there. Into her bag and coiled up, just waiting to give her an old surprise.
I'm gonna double down on spiders, not just a spider, but I'm gonna say like a bursting egg sack of spiders, just watching them crawl out of that shoe.
The old Melbourne hello.
Yeah.
The answer is snakes.
Snakes.
Started to shed its skin. So, Mr. Maine, how did the fire start in your apartment? Well, I opened my suitcase, I saw a snake, and I grabbed my Boring Company Not a Flamethrower. What more do I need to tell you?
That is a great moment. So did it turn out to be a poisonous snake or just a?
It is not
a spotted python.
A python. Those get big, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it's not venomous, right? But the python that could like choke you out. Is that what the python does?
This is a small one. This could like choke like a weak kitten, you know.
All right. So she got all of her weakest kittens into another room.
Man, I'll tell you what. This is one of those moments where, like, even if you're not a snake person, you know, once you find out that it's a python and it's non-venomous and all that, if you can get blessing, man, I'd keep that little guy. No, I guess not.
You could have a cultural ecosystem issue with it being an Australian snake in Scotland.
Yeah. Well, I saw an American werewolf in London.
It's a cultural ecosystem issue. Did they have to? Did they put that snake right back on a flight? Did they say when they send their pythons, they're not sending?
And then a Swedish student fighting for amnesty objected and demanded the plane not take off.
Man, I don't know. Yeah, I almost wonder, like, was it somebody else's snake there in Australia or what?
It's Australia. We know. They're everywhere.
It was just the Australia of it all, and all of a sudden that python's like, I want to see the world. Got in that lady's suitcase.
I mean, I told you that I was there for a reason. I'm on a boat for a reason. I'm in water, surrounded by, I don't know. We'll call them leafy sea dragons, but that's not what they are. Surrounded by them. And I'm like, man, good thing there's an island there. And they're like, hey, see that little sign on that island? It's the only island, last island before Antarctica. I'm like, oh, what's that sign say? Warning, death adders everywhere.
Wow.
I'm like, I can't go into here because of the, the dun 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 duns. And there's a killer reef over here that'll break up the boat. And then out here, death adders. I'm like, this.
Yeah.
Australia, mate.
I know. And here you are, stuck in the middle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dude, that is intense. So yeah, I guess it was just like a wild ass country where snakes are international traveling.
Yeah. I mean, the snake's like, it's dangerous here. Yeah, to get away.
The snake,
little python. I gotta get the hell out of here. I don't want to get trapped on an island with death adders.
It's a pretty good point.
So, another topic here. Ever noticed that, like, remember in high school, your friends that didn't want to conform all of a sudden seemed to adopt a new set of style or things that seemed extremely conformist.
Oh, you mean
Sure,
like there was a type of
yeah, the mid to late '90s, it was a lot of goth or hip hop kind of culture, dress, rock, rocker guy, grunge. Those beaded metal necklaces that kind of like they came out of your blinds.
wallets with chains on them.
Well, I'm gonna get a tribal tattoo. I'm like, man, that's a very big tribe.
Yeah.
I see a lot of those now. Man, where do they get all these ear loops? Like, oh, I see a lot of those. You see sort of the same sort of nonconformity seems to apply a lot to conformity. It's sort of kind of a cliche. It's kind of that like, my friends
there is a fascinating thing wherein when everything happened in a pre-super connected world, you were the one guy in your high school or the one guy in your town that did the thing, right? And you got your marching orders, sure, it was from magazines or movies or videotapes or whatever, but those were from far away, from lands that we would never see or communicate with, and so you would be their representative here. And now it's like, oh no, everything's connected. You're only a hashtag away to see literally everybody who's dressing exactly like you are, doing exactly the same thing that you are, and it's like it just seems like you said, Andrew, that there is a conformity to the non-conformity that has become more stark as we are able to keep a real-time pulse on it.
Well, a researcher, Jonathan Bull at Brandeis University, he's a mathematician who studies the transmission of information through society and influence, described, and it's called the hipster effect. Okay, that's what we've called this before, which is how all of a sudden anti-conformist... Oh, too late. Sorry about that. I missed the button. Anti-conformists start to look the same. And what he did some mathematics on it and found how this trend works. He's able to explain this, how it's just consistent across the board, where you get a couple outliers decide, I'm going to look different. And then how all of a sudden there's sort of a phase change, and then all of a sudden it's the new normal. And then how, that conformity becomes like, you know what, you guys, all you clean-shaven people, I'm going to get a beard.
Mm-hmm. So then what is the mechanism of it? Like, is it just like a herd kind of thing, or?
I mean, he gets into sort of saying how that, Bryce is highlighting here.
This is from the abstract of the paper. We show that when hipsters are too slow in detecting the trends, they will consistently make the same choice, and realizing this too late, they will switch altogether to another state where they remain alike.
So in other words, like they look up and they're like, everybody's doing that. Well, I want to do something else, and then they all decide that at the same time, and like starlings supernaturally moving as a crowd, they pivot left all in a unit.
Wow. So it's like the change slowly happens, and so your hippest of hipsters are slowly evolving the look, but that there is this flashpoint where all of a sudden everybody who is realizing that they've been left behind will catch up with whatever the dynamic is up to that point.
Yeah, you're like, hey, a man bun, sign me up. And then, wait, there are more man buns than I realized. How come they all have these? And
what happens is like it builds up slowly, and then it becomes a punchline, and then very quickly it swaps.
Yeah.
Although but then it really does. The hipster aesthetic is definitely an interesting one, because it is sort of, on one hand, a little bit of a new normal, in that it's not too crazy. It's a little bit eccentric, but it's not like the double zero spacer gauges in your ear, or a face tattoo or something like that. So it's like, oh, I'm going to show a little bit of personality, but yet I'm still just, it's basically just me wearing a scarf.
Well, yeah, and it's funny because it's like, you see this probably. Brian and Justin, like in Austin and Oakland, it's like how there are norms there that just, it almost like the hipster thing is sort of the norm. You look at certain things and you see things, there's just everybody does this, the Oakland, I mean, like, I don't know the Oakland, but I see the beard, like the Oakland beard kind of thing, you'd see that sort of thing, just boom. It's like every sort of dude I met there for a period was like all had that kind of beard.
There definitely is. I mean, although I would say regionally there does tend to be, I would always used to joke about the fact that in the South, and by that I would mean, like the Carolinas and Georgia, the dress code is always like, especially during the summer months, khaki shorts, tucked in golf shirt with the polo collar. That's like, I remember I went to like a barbecue festival there once, and it was like, as far as the eye can see, everybody worked at Bank of America in Charlotte, North Carolina, and everybody was dressed like they were about to go to a college football game. It was all kind of the same thing. So I wonder really like I wonder if you could do just like a heat map of like what the aesthetic is throughout the country by gender.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certain there are services that do that, just like there's fashion forecasters for color palettes. And, there are full-time pros that say, because if you think about it, it makes sense. It's like there are only so many directions to go. If everybody's wearing hipster beards, there's only one way to make a change, and that's to, that dial either goes up or down, and so
curly mustache.
Yeah, maybe, or I guess unironic mustaches and all that stuff. But then like if you can eliminate certain ones, it's like, okay, well that was a very popular trend 5 years ago. Therefore, it's highly unlikely it'll be this. However, it might be mutton chops or whatever.
Well, I don't know.
You're just waiting for clean shaven to be the hot trend to come in.
I mean, I can literally only grow here. So, and slowly. So,
I'm fearing when clean shaven is the popular thing.
Oh, but because you like the beard, or
yeah. And Bonnie, whenever I have shaved, for like a promo or whatever, Bonnie is not a fan of babyface Brian.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I like to think that I'm like kind of pre-setting up like a magic trick, because I always look so much younger without a beard. So it's like at some point when I really need to look younger, I'll just be able to shave it, and it'll be all the more dramatic.
Speaking of dramatic, let's do picks.
Hey, so I got about 3/4 of the way before I fell asleep last night.
I did too. I got about halfway. That's amazing.
Through Leaving Neverland, the HBO documentary that I assume will be a topic of conversation for much of the online community for the next week or so. I also got about halfway through the concert footage that the Jackson Family Estate posted on their YouTube channel as Finding Neverland was airing on HBO, which is a 1992 concert in Bucharest from the Dangerous tour. But if you ever, I guess I had never really watched like a full kind of just like the full concert, the Michael Jackson kind of concert experience. I was a little bit too young to have gone to, bad choice of words. Look, the Finding Neverland documentary rehashes a lot of stuff that we had kind of heard before, but in fairly stark, methodical retelling. It focuses on two young boys, including Wade Robson, who became a very, very famous choreographer in his own right. Man, like as somebody that at least went to school to try to put together what is credible evidence, what is uncredible evidence, what is something that you would want more information on. Man, does it seem like there's you have two people who say this happened to them, and they have, without hesitation, a lot of details and a lot of voicemails and a lot of home video that seems to that seems to back up what they're saying. I will say personally, I have a hard time believing the Jackson family line that they are opportunists there to posthumously ruin the reputation of Michael Jackson.
So I guess both of us should finish the whole thing before we.
It's 2 parts, so yeah, I watched part 1 last night. I haven't watched part 2 yet, but yeah.
Oh boy. Hey, I saw a fun and funny show that I liked a lot from Taika Waititi, Breaker Uppers. It was really fun. I liked it.
What is it
cool.
about?
It's about 2 wacky gals who break up relationships so that you don't have to do the hard thing and have honest discussions. So they manufacture crazy things. And then, as you can imagine, things get more interesting, and they reevaluate their lives. But man, so many bits in there that are so over the top. They're all genuinely funny, and the whole thing is really absurdist. It's crass, it's crude. I liked it a lot.
Is that a Netflix joint? I feel like I saw that.
Yeah, it's a Netflix original.
So I see he's an EP on it. What is he doing on that besides that?
I think lending his name is what he's doing. Like,
it's a great name.
You do see a brief appearance from Jermaine Clement, and
Cool.
you know, it's if you dig, you know, Taika Waititi stuff, it felt, you know, I don't know, it's got lots of really crass, aggressive female energy that I dug a lot.
Yeah.
Cool.
I have a pick.
Nobody asked you, right?
I was really surprised over the past week to find out that they were going to be continuing this show very soon, and it made me go back and rewatch the first season that came out from 2016. It also blew my mind that it was like 3 years ago. But this is Netflix's The OA. I talked about this a little bit when it came out because I really liked it when it came out, and having rewatched it, it is also a really interesting puzzle box when you watch it the second time and you know how the first season ends. And with both how the first season ends and some of the stuff that they show in the trailer for the second season, which I would recommend maybe not watching, it seems like there is actually a lot of meat to this mystery and this sort of supernatural, paranormal tale. It's about this woman, Prairie, who is found after she tries to jump off of a bridge, and her parents find her because someone was recording it, and they find her, and she doesn't recognize them because when she was missing 7 years ago, she was blind, and now she is back and she is not blind. And so a lot of the story is talking about those 7 years while she was kidnapped and trying to recruit people kind of in her community to listen to her story and help her do a lot of really weird supernatural stuff. And I don't know how much more to talk about it because it doesn't make sense to talk about it. Like, if I told you what happened, that doesn't make sense. And even the first time you watch it, it kind of doesn't make sense. So
you're just building this one up.
But what I'm saying is, like,
I'm actually more intrigued now. I'm more because when it came out, there was a lot of Stranger Things comparisons and stuff, which I think probably was unfair to it because then, you know, to hold something up to that, it's hard to. And I avoided it because I'm like, people were pushing like that. And it's like, well, it's not. And I'm like, well, why am I going to watch it? But
yeah.
I mean, if they're doing a season 2 and Bryce says it's worth watching and it doesn't involve somebody telling me how to organize my closet, I'll probably watch it.
Yeah, so season 2 comes out at the end of this month. So, I mean, I blasted through the 8 episodes within this past week. And I think it is a show that you would get a lot out of watching it twice, or watching that first season twice, because there are a lot of, like, weird visual things, a lot of weird spoken things, a lot of stuff that it isn't until the second time you see it that you go, that's not what that person is saying. Like, they're saying that they're holding this thing, but that is definitely a completely different thing. It's like a puzzle box. So there's a lot of mystery, and by doing this part 2 that they're calling it, it seems to give credence that it's not all just going to be a bunch of BS.
Cool.
So, The OA. It's on Netflix.
Cool. My pick is, if you get a chance, go to YouTube, go watch the NASA SpaceX press conference with Elon Musk, Jim Bridenstine, a couple other NASA people, and 2 of the astronauts that are going to be going on board the Crew Dragon. It's a kind of a neat little overview of what's been going on. If you get a chance to check out some of the coverage, you can see, they managed to, dock that thing. Seeing that happens cool. Later this week, we're going to hopefully have the Crew Dragon's going to do its splashdown. They're going to depart from the International Space Station. It's going to go through reentry, and it's going to land somewhere off the coast of Florida, which will be exciting. So pay attention to some of that coverage if you get a chance. And you can find out more about Ripley. What's Ripley, you say? Well, you launched this rocket to the space station that's designed to carry people. How do you know the people are going to be fine? Well, you put a robot in there in a Starman outfit. But this one's a woman named Ripley with all sorts of sensors and all sorts of instruments on board her, so that she can tell us when she gets back a ton of data about what the experience is like for the astronauts. So,
female robots always so sensitive.
This will be when it re-enters. It'll just be a parachute. It's not. I would have expected some kind of cool, hairpin landing type thing.
Originally, it has the Super Draco thrusters on board, which are designed to allow it to land without parachutes. That was the original design of this, was that it would go to orbit, come back down. The Dragon 2, as it was called, was designed to be able to landing and a launch on any solid surface in the solar system. Basically, in theory, it could go land on Mars, etc. Now, NASA's like, hey, that's great. This tech's really good. Let's use parachutes because we have a lot of experience with parachutes, and also, bringing us down over land, that could be a consideration at this point. But we'll see. I have a feeling that we may see SpaceX try on their own, because after this is done with this mission and it's reusable, NASA's like, no, we want new ones each time. SpaceX has this thing. They can do whatever they want.
Right.
It wouldn't surprise me. And I think right now they're really just trying, they're focused, their engineering talent is focused on making the crew capsule work, making the crew capsule safe as possible, because everything works right. Like we said, in a few months, the first live human beings to ever ride on a SpaceX vehicle are going to happen. And SpaceX doesn't want to go, man, we should have spent more time on this part of it or this part of it. They don't want to be distracted by that. But I think after they get enough data and they do that, I think they may try landing this thing repulsively. So
cool.
It's been weird. Cool.
Hey.
All right.
All right, yeah. We'll take
Nice.
Yeah. Short weird things today. How you doing, Justin?
Oh man, I'm doing great. Did you enjoy your last weekend to enjoy Thriller?
I saw someone. I don't know if that was you or Brian, but I don't. Oh, is it? Oh, because of the Leaving Neverland thing.
Yeah.
See, I don't have my HBO's not turned on right now.
Yeah. I mean, it was just more of like. Although I haven't seen, I've been dipping in and out of Twitter today just because I'm kind of curious to see whether or not that the do we cancel Michael Jackson conversation kind of took off, but I don't think it really has, at least as I've poked my head in over the last few hours.
Yeah, I don't. I would probably say there have always been opportunities to have that conversation, and I don't know the content of this film. I don't know.
I mean, imagine the
so.
worst. Imagine like literally there being a at times almost comical laundry list of places that Michael Jackson molested somebody, the guy who Michael Jackson molested, explaining in detail where it happened and what happened throughout the Neverland compound. So just imagine that it's the worst version of like the rumors, right? But I guess my thought was like, hey, look, if we got half a day out of canceling John Wayne for a Playboy interview from
70s,
50 years ago, certainly the thing that was, had $100 million lawsuit levied against it to try to keep it from airing would be something that people would think about. But then again, maybe not.
Yeah, I don't know, because anytime I have seen that conversation in the past, it always seems like kind of everyone is exaggerating, and it's to the point where it's like, well, I have no way to research this anymore. Everyone is saying that everyone is wrong, so I have no idea.
Yeah, Vanity Fair put out a very interesting 10 facts about the Michael Jackson allegations that are not in dispute.
Mm-hmm.
These are that even the Jackson family says happened, right?
Oh yeah.
And they're not great. They're not.
Oh really?
No, they're not really.
Oh.
And that compared to fairly credible retelling, at least.
I think one of the big things is you had mentioned fingerprints on pornography, that definitely match children and or children at the time.
Yeah, and to be a credit to, I have not gotten to this point of the documentary. I assume that the documentary runs up to the point where one of the chief people that is being talked about, Wade Robeson, testifies under oath that he was not molested. So I would assume that the documentary covers that and explains why he now says that he is. But yeah. Ooh, boy. I'll tell you what, here's the other thing. Man, do people love Michael Jackson. Oh boy. Following around the online discourse, it's not let's wait and see. That is a fight that has gone on for a very long time, and the people that are on the front lines of it, they are well honed in that kind of warfare.
I sent you a thing earlier before we got on here, Andrew.
Yeah, from Open Bayou.
That's
All
right.
right, 2 seconds. I'm using it.
Sure. So my Twitter's blowing up because apparently I was retweeted by the co-creator of The Punisher.
What?
So
What did you write?
I had a response to all the Steven Spielberg stuff.
And what was the Steven Spielberg stuff?
Well, he is saying that Netflix shouldn't be up for Oscars because they're TV movies and not movie movies. And so I had a couple tweets saying well,
Man, we just hit on two of the hotspot discussions in this house.
Oh, really?
I just got looked from across the room.
basically my tweet was that the prestige of cinema ends at the door to any theater. They're all not, even Alamos are fine, but even Alamos sometimes are not great. And so if his issue of and some of this is just is projection, I'm sure, but if his issue is film and movies in the proper format are the right way to do it, then my argument is, well, you would think you would kind of take care of everything around that big screen, but no, you want to throw spears at Netflix, and that seems
I'm all
very
for the
personal.
Academy wants to change the rules and change up for that because it's there.
Oh, they're silencing you.
Oh, hey, look at that. Somebody was able to wait till after the show to start fucking up our connection.
Steven Spielberg.
It was fine when we were taking on Big Snake and Big
Big Jackson
and Big SpaceX.
I mean, to be honest, it's my opinion on that is I think the Oscars need Netflix more than Netflix needs the Oscars.
Yep.
You, me, and the wall, because if all of a sudden the Emmys has a
all the Netflix
the feature film category that now becomes a bigger, gigantic thing that everybody, spoiler alert, will have seen those movies, unlike Oscar movies where it's sometimes really hard to go see The Favorite until it comes out on VOD, hopefully before the Oscars happen.
But Justin, VOD is TV movies.
VOD is real movies.
So Steven Spielberg's thing is like, all right, well, the problem is that Netflix overspent, which, by the way, that's that was the reason why Harvey Weinstein was somebody that was reviled before we found a real reason to revile him. Is that he overspent and he made it too expensive to market a Best Picture thing, and he was like doing things too seriously, and you should have just let the art decide.
Yeah. So in other words, he diamond clubbed the the Oscars.
Well, I mean, his thing, which was fascinating, was like, let's make sure we hit up all the retirement homes, and we'll just make sure that I go personally so I can talk to all the people in the retirement homes. And also, by the way, do you guys need a new rec room? I think that Miramax should put a very generous donation to buy this a place, an old rec room, and we can all talk about how you were the key grip on Singing in the Rain. I love listening to all your stories. Anyway, my little movie, Shakespeare in Love, is up for a Best Picture, so if you want to go ahead and vote.
And I don't know about you, but I certainly think history will fondly remember how much better Shakespeare in Love is than whatever this thing is. Saving Private Ryan.
Anyway, can you introduce me to your granddaughter?
All right, on the line, I think we've got back Mr. Andrew Main.
Yeah, I had my internet went completely out, so I'm calling you from my iPhone.
Gotcha. See, even we have a good and weird things, and then karma, yin yang, balance.
Yeah, I was just saying that my one thing on the whole Netflix Oscar, I think Oscars should be totally free. I'm sending you a video, by the way. You should have that. No video.
Search.
Let me try again.
Sure. Andrew is recording the call?
Yeah, I just thought I'd press that button there. Never tried that before. So I'm just do a quick little record. I want to see how good a quality it is, because I've been trying to tell people easier ways to do podcasting. Sure. And I'm going to stop that. Okay. Well, let's see. Let me try again. Hold on.
Sure. Okay, he's going to call us back.
Hey,
what's up?
We try to be positive.
Oh, okay.
Of course.
So since we're not on the show,
sure.
I can be not positive.
Okay. There he is.
What hot garbage is the Umbrella Academy? It's awful.
Man, I hated it.
It's awful
I
beyond
could not
words.
stand it.
How did it happen? Like, fine conceit, fine budget, fine everything. That acting, that direction. How did? Good God, it's awful.
I only made it 20 minutes before I was like, this is a waste of my time.
I did not make it through the first episode. Bonnie has hate watched it for 3 more episodes. Just like, I'm like, does it ever get better? She's like, no.
And everyone has been bugging us for weeks about like watching it.
It's awful.
I can't, man. Are you there, Andrew? Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Awesome.
I can hear you.
You're coming in.
It's like watching something really good, like go out of its way to be bad, like unnecessarily.
The Umbrella Academy, I was excited when I first heard about it, and then the reviews just and then it's one of the things like nobody that I know is liking this thing, and you just go, man, what a wasted opportunity.
I mean, it's probably for the people who like those CW superhero shows, which are also not my speed at all.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. I was going to say, back on the whole Netflix Academy Awards thing, one point I want to make, and again, Academy, they can do whatever they want. It's their thing. But the whole release it in 12 theaters thing was a strategy that a lot of the studios used to use for their more art house or uncertain movies. They would put it in 12 theaters, see the reaction, and then if they got nominated for awards, then they would go do a wider distribution. And so it's not a thing Netflix invented. Netflix exploited it and used it in a way that maybe they didn't expect it or want to have happen, but that was done before. That was Miramax's whole thing is we'll just put it in the right cities, qualify. If we get nominations, and we're going to put a ton of money into this movie, because that's how you made your money was theatrical distribution. But no.
Yeah, I think and obviously the difference is that Netflix threatens to upend the theater model, right? By more and more movies that you would theoretically leave your house to pay for on your television, that you are killing that model. And I get that idea that it's like, you want to, even if we're just out and out protectionist, if it's like, if we view you as a threat to the theater model, to the cinema model, then either you buy cinemas, get in this game, Netflix, or you can pound sand. We don't want any parts of you. I get it, but ultimately, it's like what I said when you were having your technical difficulties, Andrew, is that I think that the Oscars kind of need Netflix more than Netflix really needs the Oscars on a long enough timeline. And if the Emmys all of a sudden had they made a big deal about their Best Picture category that was only comprised of streaming movies that a lot of people have seen, then they would almost be more culturally relevant than a 10-picture Best Picture field, 8 of which the majority of Americans watching the show haven't seen.
Yeah, but you need to separate the award show from the award, from the awards organizations. The award show is part of it, but a big thing of it is that for a number of people who are not doing Netflix, who think that they're involved in film, it's not so much about the award show. It's just the availability. Like, now they have to compete with an even larger pool of this, and Netflix putting $50 million in to promote Roma versus like $5 million for Green Book. That's a thing that scares people in what they perceive to be an unstable industry. Is that?
But you would think,
and also. I was in defense of Spielberg. This is a guy that made invented the summer blockbuster, and so he's fiercely loyal to theater owners. Which I understand. I totally get where he's coming from that point of view. But like as Bryce pointed out, like, man, like even premium theaters, I walk in there, there's popcorn still in seats, there's people on their phones and stuff, and the best experience I have right now watching a movie is in front of my 4K TV.
Yeah, I get Spielberg doing it. I think anybody in the Oscars, if they like, all politics are local. If they feel that there's something hinky going on, then I totally dig it. But at the end of the day, man, I heard a lot more people talk about Bird Box than I heard talk about Green Book.
Yeah. Another thing too is, like, I want to point out, like, if I love Spielberg, but like, hey, how many movies do you want? I guarantee you he watched every single one of the Oscar contenders in his private theater at home.
Well, yeah, because all that stuff is screeners, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, if you see these movies watching screeners, and you're arguing that we need to defend the movie theaters, shut up. If you can't be bothered to go out and see them in the theaters, and you're telling that the only way they should qualify if they go into theaters and experience that you've decided that you're too good for, it's like advocating being super green and owning a super yacht and a Learjet.
I was just about to stop because I think there's only one way that we can take this conversation, and it's not about movies.
Well, but just leave it with movies. So it's like if you watched your primary way of watching the Oscar contending movies was screeners that were sent to your home, and you don't think other people that's the way they should watch, that's like, it's hypocrisy. It's like, this is how other people should do it, not how I should do it, because I'm too busy to do this.
You guys good to do after things? I can read the email if you are internet.
Yeah, I have it in front of me.
Oh, you got it? Okay.
If you want to read it, yeah.
Sure. Either way. All right. Well, if we're good to go.
All right.
Then take it away in 3, 2.
Hello and welcome to After Things. I'm Andrew Main, joined by Brian Brushwood.
Hello.
Justin Robert Young.
Well, hello.
And Mr. Bryce Castillo.
Hi, everybody. That's me.
So we talked about this on Weird Things, but I want to dive deeper into this, and it actually relates to a question we got from Open Bayou, and I got a delightful email this morning. It was from Mr. Brian Brushwood, who has, as we talked about earlier, he and Jason Murphy, their show, Modern Rogue, was named by somebody at Forbes magazine as the best independent series there is on television, And the fact that we just include streaming as television now is it's a done thing. We do that now. That being singled out like this is phenomenal. It's fantastic, and to have somebody who's writing for such a prestigious magazine do that is great. And I want to talk a little bit though, Brian, about there was some discussion several years ago about what to do next. You did the Nat Geo show, and you're looking at where to go next. Where did the Modern Rogue come from? How did you go from? How did you end up here?
The funny part was, and I think Justin remembers this part of the story. Modern Rogue was originally intended to be the next TV show to pitch, and then just along the way, it was like, well, I guess one way to get attention would be if we did some episodes, enough episodes that on YouTube that we could put together a sizzle reel, and then we could go out and pitch it as a TV show. And instead, very quickly, it became apparent that YouTube was its own rewards, and that there was a level of flexibility and honesty that we were able to have outside of the standard reality television 22-minute episodes with act breaks and structures and recaps and all of that stuff. And instead, we just got to be authentic, and it became quite lucrative. The channel continues to grow and do well, and we continue to have more sponsors than we have slots to put them. And it's a big part of why we're buying the compound acreage. And the weird part was now I'm at the point, because when this Forbes article came out, the question was, okay, so what do you do when the phone rings and somebody wants to make it a TV show? Which, of course, ironically, was the whole purpose to begin with. And the answer is, of course, take their call. But more importantly, as I have whatever discussions we have, remember that we still got another 6 months to a year to really get this thing up to full speed, because we still haven't even gotten to that place where we're able to post reliably 3 or 4 times per week. Like there's a Rhett and Link figured out what works for their Good Mythical Morning, and then they ramped everything up, and they released enough of it that Rhett and Link just bought Smosh, which was royalty in the YouTube world, and they were able to do it with a fairly simple formula that just was able to maximize their at-bats, and as a result dominated the YouTube algorithm. And the thought of, like, there's a chance that we could play that same game, but the thought of waiting to do that until after we try another round of television stuff doesn't seem really appealing right now. It seems like any TV stuff is going to be at least a year away, and it's going to be based on the success of whatever the YouTube thing looks like.
Well, and I think that also in your thoughts past hacking the system, I think what you realized was, well, based on your social media and your presence on Scam School, TV people will come to you, right? But you're starting from zero. Like you're literally just pitching people like, oh, I'm a person, right? And despite the fact that that you're going to be creating all this stuff in the television world, you're like, yeah, but you're a guy. We have millions of guys. Millions of guys are asking for television shows. What are you? And so now you have to work up from that position in a way that if you have a successful show, now you've got bargaining position. Now you walk into that room with a lot more power, and you can say, hey, look, by the metrics, I know what my audience wants. I know how I can take this here. I need you guys to help me plug it into your TV machine. But aside from that, I know things, and I can demonstrate and make a deal that factors that into it. And I think that, like, what's amazing about the Modern Rogue is you were able to do that. You were able to build another show and another franchise separate from Scam School, distinct from Scam School. And now, absolutely, I think television's going to come calling, but you're not in a position to say, ooh, well, if we got television, it would really make the YouTube channel. It's like,
I think that's the thing that really, really we need to emphasize on. By the time I got 6 years ago now, 5 years ago, I got my A&E show. I thought about that and I said, had I known what I didn't know now, I probably would have been better off focusing more on YouTube. I'm glad I got it. Thrilled I got it. But I knew that was the point at which I got it at a point where it's still kind of cool to get it. But soon after, it was like there were better opportunities and situations if you owned your own online content and you had more control over that. And now we're in a period where a lot of people who do online and who aren't as savvy at Brian at building a commercial operation around it are thinking, well, TV will save me. TV will be cool because TV is how I'll make it profitable, whatever. And you end up finding out that no, there are certain situations where it can, but you look at the number of people who come from big TV personalities who then go, Adam Savage does shows like Tested and things like this, who want to develop these properties because, TV's, it's like for me with publishing, it was like, I got into publishing in 2011 because I said, you know what, I can be an indie and I can have a great career as an indie, and I don't need a traditional publisher to come along and say, hey, we're dubbing you official now. You're real now. You're a real boy because we said so. 2011 didn't make a difference. I worked with traditional publishers, and now I'm with, I would consider a non-traditional publisher in many ways, Thomas and Mercer, as they're owned by Amazon. And it's been wonderful because they're a publisher of the new world, they're the new era, and I'm not trying to please old school publishers and what they do. And I work with them around the world for releases of stuff, but once you get out of the head that you're accepted when the traditional media accepts you and you just do it on your own terms, it's much better. It's like my advice to Brian.
Yeah, there is a bit of synergy in that though as well, because in terms of number of people seeing this stuff, at the point that we did the specials for Hacking the System, we were still in a shifting landscape of how much credibility came with being a YouTube success. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, we've seen, 5 years down the road, a lot more people have real respect, and we're even seeing powerhouses in traditional mediums coming to YouTube because they realize there's real value in a direct and authentic connection and the flexibility of performance, stuff like Jack Black swooping in and making the #1 gaming channel and so on.
Will Smith, now he's just doing vlogs about his career.
Yeah. But at that time, I don't know how my trajectory would look if the TV thing hadn't happened, because that was an important checkbox to check off for part of the whole story. And I don't mind that it was a lot of work to do, and I'm well pleased with the result of it, and I'm glad it exists out there. It does, I don't know, complete the picture, but that is the thing about a television project is you do it and then it is in the past, and the only value you're going to get is that you're the guy that did that show, because you're not. I mean, unless you are in a position to negotiate, you're probably not going to continue to receive checks on an ongoing basis, and the reward is simply that you did the show.
There's always a funny thing with a television project, because if you're talent, it's always more special to you than it is the crew, and it's there's always, and I've always had a great time either on sets, but I had an amazing opportunity to on the same day visit Andrew's set and Brian's set for Don't Trust and Hacking the System. I think it was the initial specials for Hacking. And it's great. You go there, and I've been lucky enough to be a part of television stuff, but it's man, you're there, and if you're a part of it, you're oh, this is great. This is my moment. This is what I've worked for. You're thinking about all the sacrifices. You're thinking about delivering. You're thinking about how this is going to be going in the future, and you talk to the crew, and they're rad and everything, but there is just that little thing, and you can't put it together until you've been on a few sets where it's there's a little bit, 5%, even the coolest people are well, if I give this puppy a name, it's going to hurt when I have to give it away. And I can hope that the puppy lives to be a dog, that we all become friends forever. But, most of the time.
So you're talking, if I'm understanding, it is astonishing how much of the full-time job of everybody in Hollywood is to work on things that will never see the light of day, probably turn out by the numbers bad through no fault of your own. Like you don't get to know whether it's beloved or good.
For million different reasons, they come and they go. Like you said, like it's in the past, and they have been through that life cycle so many times that it's like, cool, I'm gonna enjoy this. I'm gonna make sure that I do my job. This is a really cool thing, but it's always something that I think both adjacently to the both of you is a really, really important part for anybody who's going through it to understand, like, hey, look, you gotta know that this is what it is, but you should know what you're doing the day after things wrap. You should be excited about what happens the day after.
And sure. And I think with Brian and I, like, we've had ongoing things we're doing, and TV was, hey, here's a cool thing we can do. Fine, but it's not like, we both have done multiple pilots, and we'd been through that whole maybe it won't. And then you go to a series, and then your series like, yeah, but you realize you get a series like maybe another season, maybe not, whatever. I've seen, we've seen, particularly in Magic, we've seen some personalities that, they found out they're, somebody wants to do a deal and they're going to do a pilot, and they've decided that next stop they're going to be David Blaine or Chris Angel. They assume that, once somebody says we're doing a pilot, then yeah, no, that's the door. Of course, everything else is going to happen. And that's just the worst attitude in the world, because we've seen people just leave Magic, go through, suffer depression or related fields because they think, and I've seen, a personality, not a magician. I remember they were getting a pilot and they put on their Twitter, like, soon to be TV god or whatever like this. And it's like, oh dear, oh God, like you're setting yourself up for, you're not looking at the, for somebody who may have been scientifically inclined, they were not looking at the law of numbers to realize that. But beyond that, though, I think,
as the gears click and I come up with a name and then I realize, sorry.
With what Brian has here and what's gone on, is this, we're in a new period. We're in a, and we talk about, like, yes, the credibility absolutely helps to have, and it was worth a period of our lives to try to go do that. And that was great. I just did, Project Discovery Channel because I'm like, I can do this. I have this window of time to go do this. I don't have a time to do TV series, so I don't go out and pitch TV series starring myself or whatever, because I don't have the bandwidth for that. And I know the benefit of it versus the benefit of what I'm working on. But that being said, after you have that, you've checked that off, you talk about, appealing to certain people, is that, there's a generation that their stars are all on YouTube. There's a generation where they don't, if it's ABC or NBC or whatever, who cares? It's not as big of a deal to them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't think, I think on a dare, none of my children would be able to name the 4 biggest networks.
Wow.
I think, like, with lunch money on the table as a bet, they wouldn't be able to.
Wow. Make your kids starve. And but that's a big, one of the things I've heard. I've been around, being in LA, I've been around people who were super famous at some point in time, names you'd all recognize. But I mean, people like, and I've talked to Brian and Jess about this, got to know people like this who super famous at a certain point in time. But when you talk to them, their world is stuck in that point in time.
Yeah.
They see the world at the height of their success. And that's dangerous. And I saw that in Magic with magicians who were aspirational. Their frame of reference was, if they watched David Copperfield doing TV specials in the 70s, and their thing is like, I got to do a TV special like David Copperfield, and it's like, this is a very different world now. You want to be famous.
I think we talked about this at some point, like back in the 1970s, everybody who was big on television, none of them wanted to be there. They all wanted to be in the movies. The movies was the real thing. Television was just this garbage dumpster fire that, well, I guess I'll be famous on television then. And then meanwhile, you have our generation growing up, watching television, where it's like, even as YouTube pours in front of us, we're like, yeah, but TV is where it's at. And then meanwhile, like, this generation is they're gonna grow up not even interested in television. They'll be like, no, I want to be famous on YouTube.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an actor, you certainly, the money, is still, and that was pointed out in the Forbes article, is that like for unscripted stuff, or like you're doing, that's there. We're not going to see the YouTube Game of Thrones, although we might see a streaming we'll see streaming and that but everything, the lines are blurring. They're very, very, very much blurring. But yes, as far as where people want to be, you look at how Rock, who's one of the biggest box office stars in the world, do HBO Ballers. You get, Marsala Ali, who's a fantastic actor, True Detective season 3. Season 1 was, Matthew McConaughey, Woody Harrelson, and nobody looked down at them like, oh, look at those guys slumming in TV and slumming on pay cable. It was like, oh my God, they're doing amazing stuff, and this is the right medium for it.
I do love this character of the guy who hates pay cable.
Well, no, I know, but it always used to be that like a big star could do something on HBO, but it was never like the super big movie star right now. It was like the super big movie star, the guy who won Best Actor 5 years ago, and it would only be a movie, like an HBO movie, or at the most daring, like a limited series, like a 3-episode limited series on HBO. But that was like the absolute furthest point from being a movie star that you were allowed to do without it looking like you were slumming and your career had just hit another downshift or something.
Yeah, and there's, and a big thing you see now too is that if you look at like the credits for True Detective season 3, you'll see Conaughey's and Harrelson's names on there because part of it's the back end, and a lot more actors are going in as executive producers. Dwayne Johnson is a producer of Ballers. He's an EP on this. He's heavily involved. It's part of his production company, as far as I understand. That's a big thing that goes into it, is that they're getting part of that, because you do a TV show that gets syndicated, whatever, it's a big deal. But anyhow, it's just a changing landscape, and now everybody's trying to figure it out. Nobody knows anything. Nobody really nobody knows what it will be like a year or 2 years. We look at forecasts. We look at this. Who is still the number one YouTube star in the world?
Yeah, even though he was scheduled to be, the Thursday calendar item was unseat PewDiePie, and it still hasn't happened, right?
Yeah, and even if he gets unseated, it's going to be by a group, and he's a person that, like, my parents have no idea who he is, no idea, but in another world, it's huge, so. Everything, it's so big we can't even comprehend it. So we had a question which came in from Open Bayou, and that was, hey everyone, after several years of work and technical problems, I'm finally started to stream on Twitch at twitch.tv/OpenBayou. I've only been streaming for 6 days. I'm slowly building an audience. Being a contribution member to Diamond Club and others has helped build my audience. See, folks? My question to everyone is, what are the do's and don'ts of building an audience? I know the don'ts is paying for a bot to watch your channel, but what about asking high-profile members for a follow and getting them to tweet your channel? Love After Things, Open Bayou.
Here's my advice. Before you start cashing in those coupons to people to tweet about stuff and follow, I mean, the follows, whatever. I mean, that's fine. Asking somebody else that is in your field to follow you is, I think that's okay, especially in Diamond Club. If you're asking anybody else that hosts Diamond Club shows to follow you, I think that's fine if they're on Twitch. The bigger thing is, will you tweet my channel? And I would say my advice would be, save those coupons until you have something that you believe an audience outside of your community would be interested in, be it a special event, be it a big thing that you're going to do. And right now, if you're a week in, I don't know, unless you've immediately struck gold, you need to listen to your audience and find out what they want to see, what they like, and what you're good at, quite frankly. So I would say, don't think about there is no shortcut to an audience, right? And in fact, you will actively hurt your growth if you put make a big noise and people come in and you're not ready to receive them. You got to have the thing that holds them, or else all the noise in the world and all the audience in the world isn't going to matter. In fact, you're just going to give a bunch of people a bad first impression.
Yeah, and keep in mind when you ask for someone to do a tweet, everybody is convinced. They look at big numbers on the Twitter, and then they're like, "Oh man, if only they would point so many people, like even if it was just 1% of 1%, then that would be blah blah blah." Nobody will. It's the worst of all worlds because number one, the people on other people's Twitters are not there for you. They are there for whoever's Twitter they're following. So that person can say, "Hey, my friend has a new channel. Check it out." All anybody reading will hear is person who isn't person. The person I'm following has a thing. Cool story, bro. There has to be something for them. Like I remember, in the early days of Twitter, we were so astonished by our friend Greg Grunberg's numbers, and we got him twice to tweet out about us and saw absolutely no benefit at all. And so meanwhile, we put him in a place where he had to not damage his brand, but spend some capital with his audience, and it had zero payout whatsoever. And it turned out that was not a panacea, not helpful. Probably shouldn't have done that. And if I had a time machine, I would go back and explain all this to Justin and Brian 10 years ago. Don't even bother. You're making it, even if you're making it only 1% more awkward, you're making it some amount for no benefit. So I wouldn't cash it.
Or it's like, look, if you're going to do something that the Greg Grunberg audience would really, really like and say, hey, this seems like something that your audience would really, really like based on our understanding and knowledge of that. Can we do all the work and then you please your audience with us as your facilitators? That would be organically good for both of us, because at the very least, even if you're not going to get a gigantic windfall of new audience, the next time they might see you, they'll be like, oh, those are the Greg Grunberg guys. Absolutely. I'm into that.
Let me throw out an example of how I've become a fan of something and spread something. YouTube randomly suggested Defunctland, which I mentioned before, which is a video series about kind of defunct theme park attractions, rides, whatever. They're cool mini docs, 15 to 20 minutes long, pretty well done, whatever. Started like 2 years ago. I see one of those. I'm like, this is cool. And I go back and I'm like, I'm going to do like a fanboy, go back and start from the beginning. And I text my buddy Jordan, who's a big Disney fan. Hey, you watch Defunctland? It's like this thing is like made for us. And he's like, oh, I do. It's great. Okay. Text my buddy Ken. Have you seen Defunctland? Oh, yeah. That's really, really cool. Yeah. Let me check it out. Okay. I get on here and then I'm like, I'm a fan now. I'm not a person doing a favor. I have no idea the guy who makes it. I know nothing about it, but I do it as a pick and I do that. I don't know how many people I moved to it, but before I used my big platform, which maybe did a little or nothing. I called up 3 or 4 friends and told them about this. Word of mouth is how things move. Algorithms and word of mouths. Algorithms and word of mouth. Algorithms put them in front of strangers. They're way more effective than any of us is. And friends are way more compelling. Mm-hmm. My books move through algorithms and word of mouth. People saying, oh, check out Andrew Main's new book. My books don't move through my Twitter. They don't move through Justin's Twitter. They kind of, we make our fan base aware. Beyond that, that's not how it moves,
And it's I think that there is some value in some of that stuff. I mean, it depends on like who we're talking about and what community I guess we're talking about. Like I see a bunch of tweets on my timeline of other people and they're streaming and they have like a stream team very similar to some of the Diamond Club stuff where they promote each other and they all try to bring each other up. And I think that's a place where there is value in social media exchanges, I guess, if you want to call it that. I think it's not nothing, but it's definitely not always a lot of help if someone's Twitter is mostly about that person and not about ancillary stuff.
There could be people if I'm following a music critic and they're telling me about new music or things to check out, then yeah, that's great, But also remember too that some things are bigger commitments too. Like, hey, check out my channel. It's like, great, this is going to be another hour a week I'm committed to for eternity. there's trade-offs, but I think there's value to all these things. But I think that people sometimes put, I've talked about this about people like getting recommendations for book covers. Like I almost never do them, like recommend other people like do book jacket blurbs because like I don't read enough to like I get like people send me books to do them for. I'm like, bro, like I didn't actually read your book, so I can't say anything about it. I know I sound like a jerk, but that's just the truth. But also like I've seen big publishing companies put out books by named authors, and they've got like 15 names, 15 blurbs from authors that are like, so-and-so loves it. And a week after that book has been released, they've got 8 reviews. And I'm like, this is not the world where I pick up the book in the bookstore and I go look on the back to see. I mean, that works in the bookstore, but online, that ain't going to compel me as much as have one person at the publishing company making a better effort to get people to do that. And I'm frustrated because I've worked with a lot of publishers, and I've had some bigger ones where I could do more in 45 minutes to encourage, not beg, not coerce, but get reviews than they could do in a week or ever did, because they just their mindset's like, well, we want to get a big name author because that's really what matters. Like, no, real people reading your stuff, telling their friends to read it's what matters.
Yeah. So to Bryce's point, I do think that there is, and what I think the benefit that Open Bayou has is that he was able to go from 0 viewers to 10 because of Diamond Club. And that's good. And we could probably even do more in putting our stream team forward and in creating more of a cohesive branding, or mentioning that there is a stream team on 34. I didn't mean to step on it. 34 concurrence, which is great, right? To 0 to 34. That's because Open Bayou is a consistent member of the community. He has always been a part of it. People want to go reward him. That is amazing. And that's a great achievement. And we could probably do more to solidify that. But to go from that, which is a great starting point, to growing, that's creating the party and making it so loud that other people want to be a part of it. And that's something that, like, look, it's hard. It's really, really hard. And it takes a lot of time and effort. And specifically if you're doing it on Twitch, where there's a lot of you by yourself staring into a camera and talking to a chat room that sometimes you wish would go faster depending on your mood or what else is going on, it's psychologically taxing. It's not just sitting by yourself and figuring out everything and then putting it out. It's a different kind of world. So my recommendation would be, think about your audience, think about you, think about what you like doing, think about what's popular, and keep your mind focused on that as you now go forward. And then if, something that I haven't really done, but I probably should, is to do more events. People do marathons or stuff like, I guess I did like a marathon when we ended the Action News stuff. So it's like, that was an event where I knew I could tell everybody. I could send an email to everybody that I know to be like, hey, I'm ending my Kickstarter. I'm doing 12 hours a day for each of the last 2 days on Twitch. If you could spread the word on that, that'd be great, because that is a thing where now I know Brian can say, cool, this is the story that I'm telling my audience is, here's a cool project. You're going to watch a cool guy really pouring his heart out for 12 hours. You can recommend whatever you want. This cool thing is happening. I'm now giving Brian the story of a cool thing's happening. It's only happening for a limited amount of time. I'm going to go watch it. Do you want to watch it with me? Like, that's the story that I'm giving. So think about, if you're asking for people to do stuff, what is the story that you're asking them to tell their audience, that beyond just your audience, please?
Right, like, exactly. The way I think of it is, figure out the problem that they don't even know that they have and show up with a solution. Like, hey, did you know you have a problem? You don't have, you're probably trying to think of what you want to tweet because you want to have lots of content. Here's a really interesting story that will enhance you and your reputation. You're welcome. I wrote this for you. please share. And likewise, that's why, as people get into podcasting, I recommend all the time, show up on as many other podcasts as you can. Do a bunch of interviews, because what you're doing is you're showing up, solving the problem they didn't know that they had, which is you need an interesting guest who's going to do his homework and show up and really be knowledgeable about this stuff. And in exchange, hopefully, some of them will follow me back home. But again, that's not the focus. The focus is I'm here to make your show better.
Here's a couple things. I reiterate this. I'm gonna make it point here because it's on point. Like with this, when somebody says, "Hey, support my Kickstarter," it's a name I recognize. The first thing I do is I go to their page and I look. 9 times out of 10, it's a half-assed Kickstarter. It's an image. It's a thing. It's help me create this thing. I'm not gonna put any effort in it unless you guys put money into it. It's that mentality. I'm not gonna do it. Would you use your platform to promote my thing that I'm treating like a half-assed thing? And that drives me. Doesn't make me angry, drives me nuts, because 9 out of 10 times that's what happens is people are like, well, if people give me money there, I'll go do it. I wish I lived in that world where most of what I did, I got paid in advance or the fans were already there. It's like throwing a party and saying, well, I'll go buy the decorations and get the food if you guys show up. I mean, I'll wait for you to show up and then I'll go do that. Put some effort here. Now, I'm not naming names, but hypothetically, somebody may have asked a question on this podcast here. I went to your Twitch page and I'm like, great, I want to see what this is. There are no videos saved. There are no clips here. I subscribed. I don't know what the F you are because I see you're hosting Night Attack. Great, but put some effort into this.
Well, and like on Twitch specifically, there's, this bottom panel here where you can put information. Yeah, panel tiles. And that stuff's not empty. I know OpenBayou was kind of working out how to get the broadcast to save, but they weren't.
He wasn't asking us to retweet or anything like that. I don't mean to pick up, but I'm saying but I'm like, hey, like, you're not streaming right now, and I'm like, we're talking about it though, and I click over here, and it's like, I'm like, you've got your 35 subscribers now, just so you know, but it's like, put the effort in, have some videos, let me know who you are, because unless I tune in when you're there, I have no idea. And if we were hypothetically going to talk about this on the After Things podcast and gave out twitch.tv/OpenBayou, people have no idea what this is because there's nothing there.
And I liked the metaphor with Kickstarter, because what people seem to respond to on a Kickstarter is that sense of inevitability. Like, this is happening. And the big question is not, will you support it to make it happen? The question is, do you want to have missed out when everybody's talking about this new smartwatch, which is definitely coming out next year? Do you want to be the guy who has one and everyone is jealous of? Or do you want to be the guy who finally gets around to paying full retail price because he missed the opportunity to get in the Kickstarter first round? That inevitability, that momentum, I think people really detect when it comes to looking at whether it's YouTube channels, whether it's Twitch streams, any of that stuff.
Yeah. I just, again, I'm guilty of this where I'm like, well, I'll see if there's an audience there, then I will put the effort into it. But first I want everybody to come here and sign up for my thing.
Yeah.
It's people. If you get all that, people show up at the door and the restaurant's not even there, then they're not gonna go in and they're not gonna come back.
It's
easy low hanging fruit. Clips. Tell me what the show's about. Do this, promote. Because like what happens to, I'm sorry, I'm just rant. I see this before where people are like, well, I tried to do a thing, but nobody was into it, so I didn't do it. It's like, you weren't into it.
Yeah. Look, effort is the only currency on the internet. Everything else you can replicate, everything else you can fake, everything else you can paper over. The one thing that always matters is effort. When you can smell effort, you can see effort, you can taste effort on a product, and it's all those little things. It's all those. Go to a big Twitch page, right, of a gigantic person who's making their living doing it, and look at everything that they're doing. Break it down by why do they have that, and whether or not you think it's stupid, whether or not you think it's pandering, whether or not you think it's not for you, understand why they're doing it, and then understand that that's the model by which people are expecting. They're expecting they're expecting these graphics. They're expecting these tiles. They're expecting us to play something on Spotify, apparently. there's a lot of a lot of these elements here that you just have to play by those rules. You got to understand it. And look, I'm not saying that I'm not the best at it. I look at my own stuff and I'm like, man, I can do better. I can make this look better. I can make this look more professional. If I want to be at a certain place, I got to act like a certain. I got to project a certain element of it, both in my audio quality, in my preparation, in my attitude. Like there's a lot that goes into it. And to be honest, over the last month or so, I've put a lot of effort into thinking about like, okay, well, just because I've built a certain audience in my one mic shows specifically, how am I differentiating? How am I going from my core audience to another one? Specifically with politics, we're about to get into, and we already are at a point where a lot of people are going to want to pay attention to political stuff more so than they have since 2016. So now when there is another audience and I'm doing more stuff on other channels, like Brian and I are going to, have to wake up after a night attack at 6 o'clock in the morning so we can get on the road to Dallas to go do the Andrew Heaton show. That's going to be a lot of opportunity for us to say in a fun way, I do a politics show. I have a newsletter. You should pay attention to one or both of those things if you thought that I was interesting right here. I need to make sure now that living room that I'm inviting people into looks cool. Looks like something that they would be faith rewarded for walking into, which is important.
And another thing is that you can flip it on its head, right? You can instead of being on every podcast or stream that you can find, which you should do, you can find opportunities to work other people into your stream, into your project, whatever. I know that is a big thing of the podcast that I'm doing right now, which is I'm not good at a one-man show. I probably wouldn't want to really do a one-man show on that topic. But when I can have someone else on the other side to bounce stuff off with, to talk about whatever, and open up their new perspectives, that is a very similar thing. In which case, when I have an episode come out, I can tag them on Twitter and they can retweet it, and that's about as good as you're probably going to get via Twitter. But that's also something that you can go back to, right? Let's say you do an episode with person A, and then the episode comes out, and so you can tag them, and then later you can clip it and tag them again. Like you have a lot of opportunities to remind people of the really cool stuff that you do with other people. And whether that's being on their podcast or having them on your stream, those things aren't one and done, and there are a lot of opportunities to incorporate other people.
So there you go. That's all you have to do to create an audience. But it takes time. It's building over time. I started building my audience with literally physical addresses back in the 90s for my Magic books. And then I've been less aggressive now, but I would say, my mailing list is about 10,000 people, and that's over time. But, my YouTube channels, I have I don't know, maybe one has 1,000 or something. I don't YouTube much, so I don't have that, I've got, I've had a good Twitter following and built that up, but it's so spread across so many different things I do. It's hard to know what people are going to be into, whatever, but just go out there and check all the boxes that people say you should check these. If you take a shortcut, if you're like, I don't need it. Again, not naming names, but when I go to your Twitch page and there's not even, I don't even know, I have no fake. Cause I was kind of, to be honest, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen your face. I'm like, oh, cool. Let me see who this person is, who I've been interacting with just about every week for years.
Mm. But he's still really early on. There's time for him to figure all that stuff out.
Yes, I think this is a good example of even now, right? You send in a great email and you got great advice. You could have gotten more and better and more specific advice to your channel if things had been further along, right? So there's no fault to you. You don't know how this works. You're just getting started into it. But man, that's the one thing that is something that I have had to learn the hard way. Is nobody knows how smart, funny, and brilliant you are. You have to show them. You have to demonstrate it. You have to polish it up as best you can and then put it out there. The lessons you learn are how to polish better and how to project better. But other than that, man, that's the one thing you got to work on. And I got to work on. And Andrew has to work on. And Bryce has to work on. And Brian has to work on. On any level, you're always thinking about, how can I polish this better? How can I project better? Yeah. And that's internal. And that, because other than that, there's no platform. There's no magic platform. Like it is maybe at some point there was. They're gone now. They're the dodo. They died.
Here's my pledge. And this applies to anybody listening right now. Open Bayou, a couple weeks from now, send us a follow-up email and say, hey, this is what I've done on the Twitch channel. I've got this here, whatever. We'll revisit. We'll talk about it. We have do-overs. You're our friends, so you get do-overs about this. We'll talk about it. I will retweet it. I don't know how much helpful it is, but I will retweet it when you've got some stuff there. And there, I will happily retweet your channel. If you want me to come on or do something with you, I'll do that. Happy to do this. And I'm sure the other guys, I'm going to volunteer them too. We will do this, and this applies to anybody who listens to After Things. If you say, hey, I've got to work, I've done this, and we say, hey, do this, and this, if you can do this, we will do what we can to help promote.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put in the work.
Within reason. Yeah. Sure. Does that sound good?
Yeah. Hey, I'm about to have to run and grab the kids, so I'm going to do my reverse pick. Umbrella Academy. I don't like it. I don't understand the people who do like it. I think it's bad. But I'm going to keep on hate watching it so I can know for a fact that it's bad. That's it.
Yeah, I got about 20 minutes into Umbrella Academy and not super eager to get back into it. And there's a lot of big names in that too.
Yeah.
There's the Game of Thrones guy, the Ellen Page, the singer, the singer lady?
Mary J. Blige.
Mary J. Blige is in the show.
Singer lady.
Yeah. What wasn't it? It was a comic by the My Chemical Romance guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think isn't he in it, or maybe he's got a. That's me projecting. I don't know if he's actually in it, but yes.
Hey, a pick for people who do stuff that we do. I don't know if I made it the pick last week, but I have now had a week to work with Backpack, which is a soundboard app for iOS. I've been very much in the market for a better soundboard app. They are largely straight garbage. The only one that I liked had been depreciated to the point where I couldn't even open it on the modern iOS. But having used this is exactly what I wanted at the price that I think is fair. It's like $8, enough that I want to reward the maker of this app, and I want them to be able to respond to any problems should they come up. But as I look at a week on the road coming up, I'm kind of half tempted to even just have this be the place where I just record podcasts, because it has the capability to do mic inputs and record it into 3 different audio channels between the mic, the sounds, and then a master volume that you can record. So it's something that I'm happy with. Backpack.
Very cool. Over the weekend, I was gonna go buy a game because it was cheap. I was gonna buy it digitally, and then it had a thing that said next to it, like, it's a part of this thing, and so I ended up trying out that thing. And that thing is, I don't know if you guys have heard of this PlayStation Now. You guys? So this is like this is a streaming service from PlayStation. They've had it for a few years. It used to be called Gaikai back on the PS3, I believe. And the idea is that one of the things that you can do is, instead of downloading a game and just playing it locally, they can stream it to you, and you send the inputs and it sends back the video feed. And that's how they do some of the emulation stuff on like the PS3, where they don't really have the local emulator stuff working for it. So you just hit a button and it starts streaming this game and all. But and the streaming stuff is fine. There's issues of physics that they still kind of haven't figured out on lag and input delay and all. But the other cool thing is that they have it set up now where you can actually just download games offline. And so if you like the game that I was looking at, I didn't like playing it streamed because it has some action timing stuff. So I actually downloaded it. And that was pretty neat because at that point, it's very similar to the Xbox Game Pass, which is a subscription service and you can download stuff offline. The only issue is that the PlayStation library is still not very good yet because it's always been kind of a half-assed thing. So they're like exclusives and there's a lot of stuff from the PS2 and the PS3 and the PS4. But I think I've been using it on the free trial and it's been an interesting experience. And I think it's like $20 a month. And if they keep working on the library, it can be a really solid thing. Nice. Yeah, so that's a tentative pick, the PlayStation Now.
Awesome.
Yeah. Oh, I think we lost Andrew.
Oh, and Brian's gone. So how about this one? It's been after.
Wait, is he back?
I'm back. I had I don't know if it was a Skype crash or what.
Oh, geez.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm Andrew.
Hey.
I'm Andrew.
Hi, Andrew.
Well, I ended the show.
Yeah, he ended the show, so.
Okay. I'm going to do my pick. It's all right. It's fine.
Well, you got a pick? Tell us your pick.
Oh, yeah, no, do it. Ha ha. Gotcha.
Hey, my pick is this. If there's a thing you want to do, like I wanted to write books, so I went around and I looked at other authors' pages, and then I looked at Amazon books, like people's book pages. I'm like, what does a best-selling book page look like? What do I need to do to make mine look like that? Meaning, do I have to have really good descriptions? What do I need to do? When it comes to a YouTube channel, look at really good YouTube channels and say, hey, what goes on there? If there's a thing you want to do, go look at the really successful versions of that and say, what can I do on my own right now to make mine as close as this is? If it's Twitch, it's having those tiles filled. If it's YouTube, it's having, stuff there and suggested videos and header art and all that. All that little pain in the ass work, which is a pain in the ass, makes a difference. A restaurant that has no cars in front, people drive right on by. So,
yeah.
That's my suggestion.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I have suck internet, so it's been after.
Alrighty. Hey, there we go. Good work, everybody. Alrighty. Well, we're gonna go get set up for Cord Killers today. Oh, Justin, you're gonna be in town. I think we're doing next week's Cord Killers on Thursday this week. I think we're doing it early, so if you're free.
Oh, yeah, because Tom's in town. Yeah, I will likely be. Yeah, I mean, I'll be there for DTNS. So if it's going to happen after DTNS, then
I think it will. So,
that,
alrighty, well,
storm out and say, well, I guess I'm not welcome here. Just kick something over as I leave.
Well, everyone, stay tuned. We'll have Cord Killers here in a few. You got jury today.
Jury at 3.
Jury
yeah.
at 3?
Yeah.
And then just tons of. Dude, we're doing so much. I have a gift for Saturday night.
You have a gift?
I do. I spent.
Oh yeah, podcastlink.com/night attack. Go get your tickets. Tickets now. They do cut off on the website. I think 5 hours before the show. So basically, before Saturday, you better get them on Friday because that'll be the last time to do it.
Yeah.
And then $20 at the door, so it'll be a little bit more expensive.
And I don't think it'll be a gift for the show, but it'll be a gift for the other thing later that night.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh,
the thing we were talking about.
Is it what I think it is?
I spent 3 hours last night doing it.
Oh my God!
It's good. It's good.
Is it good?
It's pretty fun. It's good.
Can you send it to me?
I didn't record it. I still had to work out all the. I can send you a text file.
Send me, yeah. No, I just. Yeah, all right.
I don't have it.
Right.
I didn't record.
Welcome to Vague Things.
Things. All right.
Yeah, but All right. Well, everyone, we'll see you later. Have a good one.
Peace out.